I'll just. Okay, so now we are recording. Welcome everybody. So we'll just get started with our intro and community questions. So I think most of the people here, we just did some intros. The question this week is, what's your favorite work from home accessory? Let me start. I'll start with you, Edith, because I'll just start with who's on the top here. Do you have a favorite work from home accessory?
Oh, this is my keyboard. It's a mechanical keyboard. I love it because the sound is amazing. Make me feel really productive.
That's great. Sensory input is helpful. I'm doing a lot of work. What about you, Robert? What's your favorite work from home accessory?
My coffee machine.
Oh yeah.
Except it broke, and now we're having to pour it through we have to get up like 20 minutes early before the first meeting starts and pour it through a filter until we can get it repaired.
Oh, it's like a nice pour over. Isn't that a fancier version of coffee?
Yes. Yeah, but at 5:45 it doesn't seem it doesn't seem as cool.
No, not so much. What about you, Alvaro?
So I don't need anything really specific. I can work from anywhere, and I don't have like big asks. Quite simple. But if I had to pick anything, it's similar to Robert's preference. In my case, because I don't like coffee. Yeah, I know I'm weird. I also don't like chocolate. I'm a really strange person. But I love tea, and particularly love matcha latte tea. So I have this machine that makes this foam from milk that I used to make this latte matcha. And so, yeah, that's what I use to work sometimes, and makes me very productive too.
Yes, indeed. Then if you got a keyboard like Edith has, you'll just feel like you're flying through the day.
Oh, I have a mechanical keyboard here. I'm at the office. It's also a special keyboard, as you may see.
Excellent.
So well-known Dash keyboard because this has no labels, as you can see. And it's also very productive because you never look at the keyboard.
Interesting. Very cool. And you said Johan, what's your name?
You're right, Johannes.
Johannes, sorry about that.
My favorite would be like my standing mat. So I have like one of those standing mats where you have to like balance always a little bit. That's the reason why you see me like wobbling around the whole time. Yeah, definitely a great game changer for me if I broke at home.
Does that help you stay focused? I feel I've used those before, and it seems like you really just are like, okay, I'm standing here, so I'm going to get stuff done.
You're right. So it helps me a little bit on staying focused, and also like it's preventing me getting like any problems with my back, for example. So if I'm sit too long, I get any back problems, probably because I'm sitting wrong. So the standing mat is helping there.
Oh, that's great. Very cool. Inamar, we're talking about our favorite work from home accessory. What do you got for us?
Hello, it's my first time here. I guess that for me, it's my Apple HomePod Mini. Does somebody knows what it is?
Is that a hard drive with something else? What does it do?
It's like a speaker, but with Siri inside, so I can tell it to. I like to work with music, so I can tell it, hey Siri, play whatever I like, and she's always next to me here.
Fantastic. So music you like throughout the day?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. What about you, Patrick? What's your favorite work from home accessory?
It's the funniest one. It's my green screen. Yeah. My kids think it's hilarious. They're like, what do you think? You're some YouTuber? Oh, no, but I can do this. So yeah, I use it for all sorts of things. If I need to be the corporate guy, I need to be the open source guy, I need to be the Chinese meetup guy, whatever I need to do. I love my green screen.
So your kids know you're on the internet, huh?
Oh my God, yes. My kids watch my YouTube videos and mock me. Yes.
Yeah, mine told me TikTok is not a good idea, that I should hire somebody. They have a lot of opinions on that. Your kids probably have. It sounds like your kids have opinions as well.
As kids do. Yeah, they're teenagers. And well, actually, no, my daughter's now 20, so her opinions are really just terrible. But yeah, no, Yes, and but you know, I have studio lights, I have a nice Shure microphone, I have all that stuff, so I deserve mocking. Yes.
You could become a YouTuber if you wanted to, Patrick. That's an option that's open for you. You have the green screen.
I got well, our channel has 32,000 subscribers, so I feel like I'm kind of a YouTuber now.
I think you're a YouTuber.
That counts.
That's a YouTuber.
We turned off monetization, which is hilarious, but yeah.
Hey,
here we go.
Michelle, what's your favorite work from home accessory?
Oh, I don't know. I have to say I did get into mechanical keyboards when we started working from home.
We have 3 people on this call who talked about mechanical keyboards. That's all the rage.
Because you want to hear
Saying
it.
it helps her feel more productive to the sound of it.
I actually went the opposite. I got a mechanical keyboard, but I got it with the quietest keys that you could find.
Nice. My favorite work from home accessory, I have a raise and lower desk, which is really nice. If I think like Johannes, like you were saying, you standing up really is really helpful and helps you stay focused. And then sometimes I like to sit down. It is really good for my back too. I used to have some funky back problems when I would sit down all the time. I think we're not really built for that. It's not healthy for us to sit all the time. Awesome. Well, then let's move over to our agenda. So you can see it here on the screen. First up, we have Robert talking about the security hardening guide. So we talked about this a bit. If you noticed the conversation on Slack, there was some questions and debate last week about what does this project entail? So I wanted to mention one thing before Robert talks. We created this new SIG project proposal doc for any projects that are going through the SIG to help I found that we were answering the same questions week over week about things like the operator feature matrix, for example, things like that. So we created these project proposals as a place where everyone can kind of see what's happening with them in a nutshell. And we'll find a place to keep these on the agenda. We'll be doing some stuff on GitHub too, so we'll probably start migrating some of this over to GitHub. But if you have a project you want to propose, the template for them is in the agenda. It's at the very top. Fill one out, and then you can let me know if you have questions about it, or you can share it on the Slack channel directly. So this one is about the security hardening guide that we've been talking about. And Robert, I will turn it over to you.
Sure. I thank you very much. And I did have one question for you, Melissa. Is this set now so that it's view only, your template? Because I accidentally edited your template.
Oh, you did? I can just change it.
Yeah. I'm just warning you, there are people out there who will do stuff like that, and and so I made
why
a
we
copy
can't have
of it.
nice things, Robert.
I know, that's exactly right. That's just why you shouldn't do this in an airplane. So why I was going to, especially if you're sitting in the back, what I was going to suggest is you can see the URL in the if you have the agenda and just punch it rather than walk through it. Maybe we could just give people like a minute or two to read it, and then we can discuss the strategy around this. So if you want to go ahead and just read it, I'll go silent for 120 seconds while you have a quick look through.
Sounds good. Perfect.
And starting now. Okay, one more minute.
And if you're done, maybe just do the thumbs up and we'll know
Yeah.
that you're finished.
Okay, pencils down. All right, so let me just give a little bit of context on this, because this may explain, if you have questions about why it's framed the way it is. So my name is Robert. For those of you who haven't met me, I'm CEO at Altinity. I've been working on databases for a really long time. And we run a cloud for ClickHouse, which is a data warehouse. We're SOC 2 certified. So from the beginning, we've had to think a lot about security, both for compliance reasons, but also for just business self-preservation reasons. We don't want to get hacked, and our users, and we want to protect our users. We're also being guided by the market toward developing a much more high security version of our products. We're working currently with one of our largest customers to get ClickHouse to run inside FedRAMP and or in a FedRAMP environment. So these security issues come up constantly for us. And what what I realized a while back was it would be just kind of nice if there was something like OWASP, which is kind of like a standard checklist for how to protect internet applications. Be nice if there was something like that for yes, Patrick. It's so far it's other people's hell, but it will be our hell as well pretty soon. So anyway,
We've been doing it for 2 years and haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I think I need to chat with you about that. So anyway, a basic idea is to come up with something pretty practical that is focused on just what is it, how is it you can attack databases if they're running inside Kubernetes, and really focusing on the things that are unique to databases, and then how can operators help protect, and then just come up with a list of things. It's everything from scanning software to to doing things like making sure that you can securely provision user accounts. So that's the basic idea. I'd like to, it's something that's part of our business, so we're motivated to do it. And the final thing I should point out is that by doing this project, I have a personal goal, which is this is a forcing function to just make me write this stuff down. And because we need to share this with our users, and I think if we can combine forces with other people who have the same problem, it would share information that I think is pretty useful, and it would help our users. So Patrick, I understand from Melissa you already had some thoughts about this. I'd be very curious to hear yours and any other ideas about, is this a good thing? How do we, can we make it a better thing? Which, so on and so forth.
What were my thoughts, Melissa? I have so many thoughts.
So many thoughts. No, I was just
Yeah.
remembering you two were talking about this last week. So
right,
going back and forth on it. So I just thought, well, this is a great time to talk about it now that he's got the structure.
Because I was just pointing out, like, cloud native security is spinning off from CNCF. That's a separate conference. They just had it a couple of months ago up in Seattle. It's becoming its own practice in the CNCF. There's a lot of focus on it. If you look at every KubeCon keynote in the past 2 years, there's been some element around it. And I think that CNCF has been focusing on software supply chain, which is important. But I bet we could find some allies just in like this sort of thing, like security and hardening. There might even be some guidance and outlines available, because those tags are so huge and there are just so many people involved in these things. It might be worth it just to go talk to the tag security people and say, hey, we want to do this. Is there already an effort? And if not, is there any resources we could not have to reinvent?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, because the way I picture this is, and we have this, I mean, we're coming up sort of from the, from the bottom up, that we run on Kubernetes. So what we want to do is kind of ride on everything that's available as far as best practices for securing Kubernetes itself. Take that as, ideally, that's kind of an assumption that you can, a set of assumptions you can work on. And then, okay, you put a database in there for, some data service. What are the additional things you now have to think about? So so that, I think that's a great idea. Do you have specific people or places that the people I should talk to, or places we should go to try and ask those questions?
I am simply an observer. I've just been watching and saying, oh, that's really interesting that this is such a focus. I mean, I have done some work with the cert manager folks,
Mhm.
which, I mean, that's one piece of it. I think it'd probably be just better to find out whoever the tag, like go into the tag and throw out. I mean, it might be on the CNCF Slack, even if they have a Slack channel for the
Mhm.
tag security, and just throw it out into ether and see who answers.
Okay. Cool.
Does anybody else on the call work with any of these tags or groups already and have contacts there? We could,
Not directly, but I wanted to throw a couple of comments, Robert. The first one is that, well, I love this effort. I have so many hands, so I'm not sure I can contribute directly, but I definitely want to be an observer and keep an eye on it. And if there's any specific area where I can be of help, please let me know. There is definitely two areas which I deserve some comment. One is that some of the bullet points that are on this proposal are quite related to some areas of the operator feature matrix. So, for example, you're talking here about security features, right? And that's something that actually has been built into the operator feature matrix. There is, if you go to the operator feature matrix, there is they're classified. The features are classified by sections, and one of the sections is called security. There are some items there. I'm sure this can be improved and can be completed. So actually the feature matrix can benefit from your ideas. And obviously anything that is reflected there could somehow also be retrofitted or linked from here, because maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but the goal of the feature matrix is to create a list of features that operators should have. And there is one example already for one of the databases there. And there could be for others. So this information can also give you ideas or information here. So there's a two-way potential collaboration between both projects.
Mhm.
I can now paste the specific link for the security section, but you can see there in the project. The other one, there's one topic here, user management and handling of credentials. I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, that the main goal here would be to provide guidelines on how to specifically do this in a safe, secure way, more than specify how operators should do this directly, right? But still, I see this as an opportunity also for standardization. Speaking of the operator that we're developing, StackRest for Postgres, and a few others, I've seen already some intents to create users for databases on a declarative manner. So rather than using database dependent commands like, create user at SQL level, blah, 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 with password, blah, 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 do it at a CRD level, and then have the database create that, which also opens the opportunity for synchronization with external systems. And maybe this is also a path for standardization. And if there is a way in which this operation, create a user in a declarative way, could also be done in a secure way, maybe this is an opportunity to tell everybody, hey, this might be the recommended approach to do this, and maybe we can all also standardize in this part.
Yeah, so we have if I could address that point, this one sort of opens up pretty quickly and goes well beyond the scope of operators. But in the case of our operator, and that's where, obviously a lot of my experience comes from, we do user management, but what we often do is do enough user management so people can then use whatever RBAC capabilities the database offers. I do think that trying to do a lot of user management in operators tends to be kind of difficult. So for example, when you create a user, it takes a while for operators to, see your CRD, get done with reconciliation, and then go make the appropriate changes. So what I was thinking there was to put in just enough to sort of explain how to do the basic user management, but then leave people to use whatever the database offers. that might not be the right assumption. I mean, obviously I'm kind of focused on, having done this in MySQL, having done this in ClickHouse. So I know the capabilities of those databases, but I don't know necessarily how other databases handle this.
No, you're right. That is one option. So leave it to CRDs. It's subject to reconciliation cycle.
Yeah.
It's can be defined by the operator.
I
I don't think it's a big
Yeah.
deal in my opinion, because these are the things that you don't need to create in a rush. If you need
Yeah.
to create a user in a rush, you have some problem. You can always fall back to SQL if that's the case, right?
Right.
So I think the opportunity for declarative creation of users, roles, permissions, everything in general, creates an independence interface for the user. So the user learns that interface, this CRD or whatever it is, and then you can actually plug in different mechanisms. Speaking of Postgres, which is the one that I know better, supports many ways of user authentication. So
Right.
it could be done even using external sources like an LDAP directory, right? And having the opportunity to do this allows you to do synchronization at that level and opens up the door for more things. But even further, if this CRD is kind of standardized, then a ClickHouse operator, a MySQL operator, a Postgres operator can probably use the same declarative user RBAC mechanisms. And so it becomes standardized and reduce the burden of knowing different databases how to manage these things. It's just an ideal. I don't know if this is feasible or not, but at least to put some thoughts into it could be good.
Okay, great. So I was good. I was thinking we would keep it really, really simple to begin with and just say things like, hey, if you're sticking a password in there, by golly, put it in a secret, or in fact, if you're moving credentials around, that was one of my back of my mind. Another concern is if you're creating users, be clear about what's the scope. Like, can people from outside see that? So, somebody coming in through an external ingress point, can they see this user and log in and use it? If so, that's actually could be an issue that you're creating. You're basically exposing users outside your Kubernetes clusters without knowing it. So I was thinking to try and scope it to issues like that, which are pretty basic to begin with, and then we'll see where it goes. And this is actually something that is relevant to Postgres. So for example, Postgres does IP filtering on the on connections coming into the Postgres server. But once you run inside Kubernetes, let's say you come in, I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities for this to create holes. So for example, you come into Kubernetes, you maybe have a TLS endpoint at the front door. At that point, you're you drop the TLS encryption, but then at that point, okay, how do you make sure that Postgres can actually see what's the underlying IP that this came from, so that it can tell whether this person should be allowed in or not? Because at that point, the connection now has the TCP/IP packets will show if you're not careful, they will show the originating address of your load balancer, not where it originally came from. This is an issue we had to work through with with ClickHouse.
Absolutely. It happens, yes.
Anyone want to? Any other comments? I don't want.
I've just been cruising to tag security. It's a pretty active group.
Yeah.
I think we would get some response. I mean,
Cool.
they meet like every 2 weeks and their agenda is packed. Justin Cormack is leading that charge. So
okay.
I expect that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. You know what would be really helpful for me is just somebody who knows Kubernetes security. I mean, we sort of learned this stuff on the we know a lot about database security, but the Kubernetes, the combination of Kubernetes security with database security layered on top of it, that's been it's been on the job training.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I mean, like, the most crazy, insane, focused people are either documentation or security, because of those are the two things nobody wants to do. And if you do want to do it, you get religion. That's all you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Justin Cormack, tag security. So
Well, the
What I
tag
can-
security chair is not Justin. I just noticed that Justin is all over the meeting notes.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, you just click through to the link and you'll see like
Yep.
all the people.
Great. Okay.
And I
Robert, I
added you
like-
to the security Slack channel too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I shared with in the chat window, Robert, the link to the specific section about security
Thank you.
features in our matrix.
Great.
Any input will be more than welcome.
And we can ask around in the community too, Robert, if there's anyone else in the broader kind of DoK community who works with the security tag.
Yeah, and there was actually I forget the guy's name, but he was on a couple of meetings ago. He did the operator for Druid, and actually,
Oh, yeah.
it turns out that he worked through some similar issues that we went through.
Excellent.
Um,
That's a deep. I'll tag him and
Yeah,
get
yeah,
him
great.
if he wants to be involved. Cool.
So I would just like to say I want to do this. I think it's useful. We're doing it kind of in a in a way that's focused on our own operator, but I think I think there's an opportunity here to generalize. I really want to work on this. I am that person, Patrick. I like security. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
Takes all kinds.
yeah.
And I thought you were cool.
I used to do QA. I think those two things are linked. If you like QA, you like security because it's
Oh,
either
God,
right or it's wrong.
Who hurt you, Robert? Who hurt you?
So
It's great. And I like the idea of let's see if we can collaborate with them, or if there's
Yeah.
already some work stream that we can be part of, just like we're collaborating with the storage tag too. I think this is a
Yeah.
great way for us to get involved.
So one thing I'm going to do is I've signed myself up to do a talk on operator security in at the DoK meetup in Menlo Park. This is again forcing me to just get this stuff written down in a way, present it to people, get their feedback. So that's another avenue to try and I'd really love to, if we could. I'm going to propose a talk actually on this topic to the CNCF for KubeCon.
Yeah.
And
great.
I think the CFP is open now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'd love to. I think it'd be a fun one to get. I haven't seen this talk before, so maybe we can
Oh,
get
that's
that on.
fantastic. All right, very good. Any other questions for Robert about this?
I will start. So Michelle, as a next step, in the previous conversations, you'd suggested, starting a document out on the, on the DoK GitHub. I can just start putting notes there, and wherever you want to post this, I'll just follow your lead in how you want to do this.
Yeah, that's great. I think if you don't have rights, we'll have Hugh get you set up there, and then
Cool.
Let's post it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
And I'll just mention, and Robert mentioned there's a Bay Area meetup. So if anybody is in the Bay Area, it's the 18th, right, Robert?
17, Wednesday the 17th.
17th. Wednesday the 17th. Yeah.
6 a.m. or 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Sorry, not 6 a.m.
That'd be very early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I think there are details on the events channel on Slack about it. So if anybody's in the Bay Area, hope you can. All right, very good. Let's go over to the next agenda item. I just have a quick reminder. So we've been working on, anyone who's new, we've been working with the storage tag on this databases on Kubernetes white paper. It's written, it just needs an overall final review from people in our community. By end of this week, if you have a chance to look at it, please do, and just put comments throughout the doc. And that should be published, I'm guessing by June timeframe. So please do take a look at that. And then we have last on our list, we have operator matrix project with Alvaro.
Okay, so I think some people did. I think you asked for this, but I may be mistaken. Maybe someone else may want to have yet another introduction on this project, or everything is already quite clear from the READMEs and all that is written so far. Then I can also bring an update.
That's perfect.
Okay, so I'll do a brief intro for anyone involved here or who hasn't seen this project first place. So first of all, let me share the URL of the project itself. It's all on GitHub. And the main idea behind this project is to solve a series of problems that I saw at the beginning from end users. So this is something targeting end users. And the idea is that it has been, again, according to my understanding and many other people I've been speaking to, difficult for end users to identify which particular features a given operator has. For example, if we're talking about Postgres, whether a particular operator supports point-in-time recovery, and how do I search for this information in a kind of standardized way, especially because different people call different things differently, same things differently. And this happens even on trivial things that should have a very unique convention. And the second problem is trying to compare features across different operators so you can pick the one that fits better your particular use needs. So taking into account these two main goals, plus the naming standardization, I started some effort to create a list of standardized features. At the beginning, I and some other people helped me gathered information from existing blog posts, for example, that took these, so do some comparison across operators and look at the features that they were listing there and how they classified them. Now, today the project is something that is still not ready for end user consumption, but it will become ready for end user consumption. Right now, it's kind of ready for vendor consumption. So the idea here is, first of all, to create a vendor neutral space to define a list of features for a given database technology. And this is called specification. So to create a specification for what is the list of features that a given technology may support, right? And then the idea is that from one side, vendors will produce submissions, and for each new release that you do on your own software, you will submit it to this vendor neutral space and list the features that you should support for this particular version against a given version of the specification. And once this information starts flowing, there will be an end user facing website, part of DoK or something else, it doesn't really matter, that we still need to work on, so that you could see this in a more graphical way. Right now, if you go to the project itself, you can see that the goal of the repository is to eventually support the matrices for many technologies. And that's why the name is generic, the operator feature matrix. But as of today, the effort started with a very particular technology, which is Postgres. This is, well, how I started. I started getting collaborations from, and this is what it is today. But the idea is that once this effort is final, and it's actually very close to final already, we have been receiving feedback about the features for Postgres. And I think we are pretty close to an agreement of what could be the 1.0 version for this specification, which contains a list of features that you should expect on a Postgres operator. The matrix itself, the companion scripts that helps transform this into more human readable formats, and the process we will use later on to construct the website could be applied to other technologies alike. So for example, if someone wants to create the equivalent for MySQL, could just copy and paste the Postgres directory, copy the scripts, copy the features, start modifying, and come up with the features that are specific to MySQL. And I know there's some debate, which we can happily continue today, about this approach. This is what is built so far. The idea is that, again, you can copy this and say, okay, let's now create the list of features for MySQL, then the list of features for MongoDB, then the list of features for Cassandra, whatever you want, right? And then my idea is that once this is done and we have several examples, we could also go back and look and see, among all these different technologies that have been implemented already, which are the common features. And then if we can identify a proper subset of common features, maybe we can call this the common subset of features for any data operator on Kubernetes, and create spec only for these ones, and then retrofit the existing operators into this model so that there is common features and technology-specific features. Because what I definitely see is that there is a lot of features that are really database dependent. A lot of features that are, for example, specific for Postgres that do not apply for MySQL, let alone for a non-relational database or even a non-database technology. Now, what I'm actively looking for here is feedback. So if you go to the repository, click on Postgres, click on spec, that is the spec. There's a YAML file, which is a source of truth. And there's also a markdown file that is rendered from this YAML file. That is the matrix, that is the specification, that is the list of features that we want to make in GA as soon as possible. And then there's also a directory for vendors, which if you're a vendor, you can click there and see how it is expected that you will submit or make your submissions against the matrix. There's a template, just copy, fill in, and submit a pull request about the repository following these guidelines. Thank you for showing them on screen. But other than that, everything is open now for feedback, for comments, for ideas. I would encourage, again, vendors of Postgres operators right now to submit any improvements or corrections for the specification itself. For the vendor submission process, you can start working on potential submission against the existing GA, sorry, the non-GA yet version of the specification, see how it works for you, see how you can integrate this into your release process. Ideally, my recommendation is that creating the YAML file for the submission should be part of your release process. If you make it into your process, you'll always have this submission ready. And yeah, that's it about the description. Updates as of today, we've been receiving feedback from Cloud Native PG. There's some issues submitted with some comments that I hopefully will be resolved very soon, so we'll get them merged. And I'm welcoming also more feedback now from Percona. Edith, I think you can talk about this, and from Crunchy operator, CrunchyDB. And once we see that there's no more changes being proposed, we can call it GA. And then Melissa, on your side, we are planning also to talk with the web design team or person to start thinking on the user end user part of this, so that we can create a web representation of the matrix, not the matrix itself, the submissions from the vendors, so we can show the features there. Comments, ideas, suggestions?
When is 1.0 going to be ready?
I don't know. I would like to gather opinions from other vendors, so as to whether this is good for them or they have some comments or feedback. I see that there was some feedback being thrown at, and it has slowed down a little bit. So I guess we are pretty close. But I don't have any specific date. I don't even think it's my call to call it GA, but rather a more wider consensus, or the DoK, Melissa or whomever.
And I would say I leave that with the group, this group, to decide what makes sense for GA. I don't know if I can personally decide that. I think it's this group that needs to decide. Hey,
Alvaro, I have a question, which is I've probably been dealt with elsewhere, but I didn't hear the answer. How many Postgres operators are there? It's because it sounds like there's several of them, or even a lot. Is that?
There is probably around a dozen.
Okay, yeah.
There is, from the top of my head, there is Cloud Native PG, Zalando, Crunchy, Percona, CubeDB, proprietary ones. There's enterprise proprietary version of Cloud Native PG. There's Fujitsu, several versions, I think. There is VMware, and then there's a couple of them that are not public, so probably don't apply, and probably another couple of them or 3 of them that are in development. So there is technically a lot.
Okay.
And Stackers, the one that we are behind.
Right.
Probably more famous, there's like 4 or 5, but still there's a lot.
Okay, thanks. And I've looked at the security things, which are good. They actually brought up a couple of things that were not on my weren't on my list, but they're definitely like no privilege mode. That's a good point. Looking at this, in fact, it looks like to me there's the security stuff that we were just discussing is generic. It's trying to be just sort of some general things that any operator should follow. And you have in your list, everything that the things that you have are very specific to Postgres, it looks like.
Yeah.
And then is the notion is that you will have further lists like this. So for example, for Cassandra.
Yeah, the idea is so one of the goals for this is to get a quick turnaround, right? Like to be able to deliver end-to-end working feature matrix plus the visualization plus the process for vendors to contribute their submissions as soon as possible so that end users can start benefiting from this. And also to serve it as an experiment to see how it works, what's the reaction, what is the feedback from people. And then once we see this works or actually already can be started, to get some other more field experts on other technologies and replicate the effort. And then once we have several examples of those, we can try to identify more common subsets. As you mentioned, for example, the security features, most of them are very Postgres specific. But if you look at all the features, like for example, around installation, some are around backup, some around user interface, they could be targeting multiple technologies. So I believe it's a good idea to go end to end to deliver something of value to end users, even if it's just a percentage of the market right now. And then I trade this with other technologies and then trying to find common subsets. I cannot do this effort for MySQL because I'm definitely not a MySQL expert, let alone MongoDB or Cassandra. But I'm ready to help bootstrap these efforts with guidance and ideas about how this works specifically for Postgres, because I've been pushing this project behind, and I'm ready and happy to help with other technologies if anyone wants to pick on them. And it will be great actually to do this.
So you have the generator, but the generator generates a Postgres output where there's no indication of what's required or how to extend it. Because like some things there are a few generic things, but some things are, I mean, this is built for Postgres. Like how would I add Redis in here or Cassandra or anything else? Because I don't even know what, like, it's asking like what Postgres version number it is. Is that a required field? How do I change it? Like replication does not make sense in a Cassandra context. So, this HA and replication, that's not even, we wouldn't even probably touch that section because that's how it works. And PGEX, I mean, there's like, how do we extend it or what do we do with that? And what's the output look like?
So the idea, it is not written, this procedure of how to create this equivalent matrix for another technology. That's why I'm offering the guidance to do this. I think the process is actually quite straightforward. So you see there's a Postgres folder here. So just copy and paste that folder into another one called Cassandra. So there's operator feature matrix / Cassandra, and start with the same content, just copy everything that is in there. Now start modifying. You go to the original, you go to the YAML file for the features. And the first step is pretty easy. Delete anything that doesn't apply to Cassandra. Like if that feature radically doesn't apply to Cassandra, replication, just delete it. It doesn't belong there. Or a whole category, just delete it. Then the features that are perfect as they are, then just leave them. And the features that are good, but they need rewarding or different values, if it's an enum or whatever they need to change them to adapt to Cassandra, then do that. Once you're there, the scripts are probably good enough because the scripts what they do right now is from the YAML generate a JSON file, a markdown file for visual representation of the spec. This could work as is. If you just add categories, add features, remove features, that should probably work as is. The script to generate the vendor submission template is also pretty much independent. As long as you don't add any new fields to the features themselves, it should work also as is. And the readmes will require some editing, but for the most part, they could be kept as is, also the readmes. So I think that the most significant effort to adopt this to another technology is a copy and paste effort, and then work on the features to remove the ones that don't apply, features or categories that don't apply, modify existing ones, and add the ones that are technology specific. And that's why I would copy the directory and start from there.
Yeah, I need to talk to my DB team. I think the pushback they had was, are we doing this or Operator Hub? Because they spend their time working on Operator Hub, making sure that that's up to date. and they don't want to have like 10 places to do it. So I will talk to them and see what we can get.
Yeah, no, that's great. We also thought about Operator Hub, and there's been many questions about doing this. But the reason why we decided to go this route is, first of all, Operator Hub, to do this with Operator Hub, we'll need to agree with Operator Hub on doing this. And so Operator Hub will need to do all this and implement all this and agree on doing all this, which I'm not sure even if they want to do this. Second, there is a slight misalignment with Operator Hub, even though it looks quite similar things, but Operator Hub follows the idea of the path that we are approaching at the end of the cycle, which is look at the common features across all operators. And so they represent things, either features and some metadata that is common to all operators, whereas here we're going for per technology. So it's a little bit different. In other words, to be agile, to get this, to provide value to the end users as soon as possible, I think it works better as an independent project. Now, could this eventually be integrated into Operator Hub? My pleasure, like nothing against that, absolutely. It will probably give it even more exposure than it has. Or it will evolve as naturally as an independent project and also gain a lot of traction. Also happy to see that happening. In my opinion, I don't care. As long as it's valuable for the users, whatever it is not relevant.
I think that's an interesting thought too. If we want to start it here and show what it looks like, and then that gives it gives us something to take to Operator Hub. I think that's a good point. If that is a potential other home for it, if we kind of show them what we've done and say, hey, can we contribute this? That might be a good way to go. To your point, Patrick, of having to, update things in multiple places, which isn't beneficial for anybody at the end of the day, but it might be worth us putting it together first so we can show it to them. Anything else on the operator feature matrix project? Questions, comments, feedback?
I just would like to quickly ask you, Edith, because I think you, correct me, I think it was you, right, who mentioned something that wanted to know about this in our previous chat. But I also spoke with SIG Running, which I guess you're also in touch with, and also wanted to contribute back. Well, we would really love to see contributions also from Percona. So if you or CGA or both or whomever from your team can look at the specification and say, thumbs up, everything is perfect, or no, we would like to introduce these features that are missing or correct these descriptions or whatever, then just create an issue on the repo, submit a PR, whatever you consider appropriate, and let's get the discussion ready, because once we collect enough feedback, we may be in the position to call it GA.
Okay, Alberto, thanks. I'm sorry, I can give too much feedback now because I'm just starting, trying to understand the context and everything, but I will let know my team also and hope to have feedback in the future.
Excellent. And if you need any help, just write on the Slack or DM me, and I'll be happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, well, that is the end of our agenda. I wanted to mention one other project in the works. We're working to put together a roundtable for people who are developing writing operators, to deep dive into challenges that come with writing operators and using them in production, and the goal of identifying Kubernetes and ecosystem features and projects that we can improve the operator ecosystem. So we'll be sending out a survey in advance of that, just to collect input from people who are writing operators about the challenges and issues. And we're looking to host that probably toward the end of the month in May, but we'll keep you posted on that. And anyone here who writes an operator, we would love to have you attend, provide input and attend that meeting. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
Any other questions, feedback based on the topics that we talked about today? Cool. I think we got some good projects going. Continue the conversation on Slack. Excuse me. So we've been doing these on Slack versus Zoom, and we've asked people before, is there a preference? I know it was kind of split. I think a lot of people wanted to go back to Zoom. Some people wanted to keep it on Slack. Just by show of hands or raised hand here, who would like to keep it on Zoom? Robert? So this is kind of what happened last time.
Yeah.
We had some people want Zoom, some people want Slack. Why don't we keep it? Well, we'll just keep it on Zoom for now. And we'll go back to doing it on Zoom. I think a lot of people wanted to move in that direction, and we'll just keep conversation in Slack as well. So we'll follow up there with notes, etc. And you can just reach out to anybody anytime.
Patrick, I can live with Slack too.
I just don't want one more Zoom in my day. That's all.
I know.
I get enough of Zoom.
It's tough. I know.
Yeah.
All right.
My
Well, I
vote is
appreciate
for-
it. Can't please everyone.
Yeah.
Such as
I just
life.
want to say my vote is for one Zoom out of maybe 3 meetings. So 1 Zoom, 2 Slacks, something like that.
We could also look at that. I think that's a
Yeah.
good way to do it.
Yeah.
And that helps people asynchronously if they can't join the Zoom. All right, we'll look at how we do that. Maybe it's 1 Zoom meeting a month, and then the other is the Slack, just to keep it simple.
That
Cool.
might be worth
Okay,
it.
there we go. Now we sort of please everybody. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you.
Contributions.
All
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.